Hey loves, welcome back to my channel, and for those of you that are brand new, I'm Candace and welcome to my channel. So this video, I wanted to tell you guys about our IUI experience. Obviously we've done the IUI way back in the past, but because I've never talked about it and never told you guys the story and actually explained what an IUI was, I thought right now would be the perfect time. So for those of you that are new to my story, we actually do have a daughter via IVF, and we had 2 failed IUIs. So I'm going to just tell you guys a little bit about what IUI is and our story, our experience. Of course, our IUIs were unsuccessful, but I know tons of women who have found success in IUI. So hopefully this video doesn't discourage you in any way. And I'm going to do a little bit of explanation of what an IUI is, and I'm going to go ahead and get right into the video. So first, I'll actually explain what an IUI is. An IUI stands for intrauterine insemination, and it's pretty much artificial insemination. It is a lot less invasive than IVF, and although it's kind of a similar type of deal you have going on, except with IVF the baby is made outside of the body and put back into the woman's uterus. But with the IUI you don't have to do any of that. So the IUI procedure is pretty straightforward. It's not really painful. I mean, it's uncomfortable and it's embarrassing, but it's not nearly as terrible as IVF. I don't want to say IVF is terrible, but IVF is definitely on the scale a lot higher of, you know, pain and time and everything. So for those of you that don't know what an IUI is, it is pretty much when a woman takes some type of fertility drugs. I guess there are some IUIs that are unmedicated, but in my experience I took Clomid for about 5 days, and first I had an ultrasound, an intravaginal ultrasound done, just to kind of look at my follicles, see how many follicles I had, check my ovaries, and make sure everything was a go. Once I had that done, I started the Clomid, and I did that for 5 days. And you're closely monitored, but not as much as IVF. You're pretty closely monitored with ultrasounds, because what the doctor doesn't want is for you to grow tons and tons of follicles, because there's no way to like with IVF they're actually putting in the number of embryos that they want. But with IUI, there's no way to do that. So you're very closely monitored with IUI, making sure that you're not growing too many follicles and making sure that your follicles are actually growing. So I said all to say, where was I in the story? Okay, so you take the fertility medications, you grow the follicles, you are monitored with the ultrasound on a few of your cycle days. Once the doctor feels that your follicles are mature enough, then you will be given a trigger shot. So for me, I went into the doctor's office and the nurse did my trigger shot, and that was the first experience I had with shots for a fertility treatment. So the what do you call it, the trigger shot is done kind of like in the hip, and then about 36 hours later is when you do the IUI. So I think that's pretty much the basis of the beginning of the IUI. It's always done based on your cycle. So you're going to start the whole process on day 1 of your cycle, and then, you know, depending on the different days. And you have to make sure that you guys do the IUI before you ovulate, because you don't want these big, beautiful, juicy follicles to ovulate and then you wasted all your money and all your time. So that's pretty much it. And so once you get the trigger shot, you go in. So for my doctor, in my experience, I did 2 IUIs back to back, 2 different days. 36 hours after the trigger shot, I went in, and then my husband Tim, he gave his sample. They washed the sample, and then as far as the IUI procedure, it's pretty straightforward. You go into a regular exam room, you lay on the uncomfortable little bed with your legs up in the stirrups, and so the doctor's using a catheter to insert the washed sperm into the catheter and through the cervix and into the uterus. And so the hope for an IUI is that the sperm will meet the follicle, will meet the mature egg and make a baby. And so that's really it, I think. So when we went in, like I said, we did 2 IUIs back to back. So we went in one morning, we did 1 insemination, and then the next day we went in and did it again in hopes that it would increase our chances of success. But unfortunately, we were not successful with our IUI. And so that's really it. After the procedure, the doctor had me just lie there for a little while. They turned on a little timer, I think for like 5 or 10 minutes, and then you go on about your day. There's no recovery, there's no bed rest. I literally was working full time when I was doing my IUIs, and I was sneaking away, going to the doctor, and then going right back to work afterwards, so you don't have to have any restrictions after your IUI. And then 10 to 14 days, depending on, I guess, your doctor, you'll have a blood test. So we did 2 IUIs. The first one we were married about 2 years, and the first one, well, both of them were unsuccessful, but the first one we did, I didn't even get to make it to my blood test. I started my period sometime within that 2-week wait, which obviously let me know that I wasn't pregnant, which I was devastated. I was really hopeful that our IUIs would work, and even though we were dealing with male factor infertility, an IUI can overcome male factor infertility because it gives the sperm less space, less distance, I should say, to travel to meet the egg. And so I was really hopeful, even though I knew our chances of success were pretty low. So that's pretty much our IUI experience. I think I narrowed it down. I covered everything. It's not anything, if you're thinking about doing an IUI, or you've been told you should do an IUI by your doctor, or you've been doing research, it's nothing like overwhelming. It's pretty straightforward. You take your medications, you do your trigger shot, you go in for your insemination, and then you wait to see if it worked. So the first time it didn't work because I knew it didn't work because my period came. The second time we did the same procedure all over again, and then I actually made it to the blood test, the second IUI, but the blood test was negative, and I was just devastated. As I said, we had been married maybe about 2 years at this time, and we did the IUIs just a couple months apart, and I think we just needed a break. So we took a break, and we didn't do any fertility treatments for like another 7 or 8 years when we actually started the IVF. So as I said, I took the Clomid. I think there are different types of medications that doctors prescribe in order to help your follicles grow a little bit, and so that's really what the medication is for, just to help you grow mature follicles a little bit more than you would on a normal cycle. And that Clomid, I was a mess. I had hot flashes. I was very hormonal. It was just a mess. I hated the Clomid, and I had a lot of side effects with it, but I only had to take it for 5 days, and so that's really my experience with the Clomid. Overall, I think the IUIs total were $1,000 each, maybe a little bit under $1,000, and that's including the medication as well. So, and some insurance companies actually cover an IUI or a few IUIs, and so if you are one of those types of people that you have medical coverage for IUI, I would say just do it. Just do it. Try it and see, because a lot of times people don't go directly into IVF unless there are some known causes of infertility where you know that you're not going to be able to get pregnant naturally, like if a woman has no fallopian tubes, or if there's some issues with the ovaries or something like that. A lot of times people will go right into IVF. Most people begin with IUI just because it's not as like intense as IVF, and it's not as expensive. So what you need for an IUI, you do need fallopian tubes, clear fallopian tubes, and a lot of times your doctors will give you the dye test to make sure that your tubes are open. So you do need fallopian tubes, and you do need ovaries, and you need sperm for the IUIs. And I personally feel like we probably shouldn't have been told to do IUIs just because of different factors, and I don't think that the IUIs would have been successful. And then we're spending $1,000 each IUI, and so by the time we do 3, 4, 5 of those, we might as well just continue to save our money and do IVF. So that was my personal opinion, but as I've said, I know plenty of women, plenty of couples who have done IUIs, who have done artificial insemination and have gotten pregnant that way. So you just really have to see what's going to be best for you. As I said, the procedure is very easy. It's very quick. It's not very painful. It's just uncomfortable when the catheter is going in and they are inserting the sperm. It pretty much reminds you of a pap smear where they use the little what you call that thing? Y'all know what I'm talking about. The thing that go like this and they open it up. That's pretty much if you just can picture that, which who wants to picture that, but if you can picture that, that's really what the procedure is using the little thing, inserting the catheter that has the washed and clean and best sperm in there, and putting it right where it needs to be, and then you just hope that the eggs, the sperm meet, and you know, a baby is born, is formed. Yeah, I think that's really our whole experience with the IUI. It was devastating for us because we were pretty newly married, and we really thought that we would get pregnant right away naturally. And so when it didn't happen over those 2 years, we felt like, oh, we'll take this one step further, we'll do the IUI, and then that'll be that. And so we did not know that we would be on a 10-year journey through surgeries and through IVF and through failed IVF and all of that. And so looking back, I know that was just another chapter in our book, in our story, that has led us to where we are now. I just remember after the doctor performed our IUIs, he's just like, think fertile thoughts, you know. So you're lying in this exam room with this crinkly paper under you. Y'all know what I'm talking about, with the crinkly paper. And he has this kitchen timer going, so it's like ticking. And when it goes off, it sounds like, you know, like the turkey's done or something, like the little like dinging noise or whatever. So he's like, think fertile thoughts, and I'm laying there like, really? Okay. So like I said, I went back to work right after that, and all I can think about in my mind is like, I can't believe I just left this doctor's office and I did this procedure and I could possibly be pregnant. So that is pretty much our IUI experience. We had 2 unsuccessful IUIs before we eventually moved on to IVF. And if you guys have any questions about IUIs, you can ask them down below in the comments, and I will try my best to answer. If anyone is thinking about doing an IUI or has been told by their doctor that IUI is going to be their next step, I hope that you guys find success. And if you have any questions, like I said, you can ask them down below in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you have an amazing week, and I'll be back next time with another video. Bye. IUI is when a male sperm is taken in a sample and it's washed, so they get rid of all of the bad guys. So if you grow 12 follicles and they put the sperm into the catheter, into your uterus, and all of those follicles and the sperm meet, and you get pregnant and have like quadruplets or septuplets or whatever.